It was a bitterly cold Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago. The kind of morning where your breath fogged up the glass before you even stepped outside, and strangers huddled closer on public transport, not out of friendliness, but necessity. On the number 14 bus headed toward the Lakeshore District, people sat in silence, earbuds in, eyes down, hands jammed in pockets. And somewhere in the middle of all that, wedged between a grumbling businessman and a group of rowdy college boys, sat a young woman named Alina Khan. She was 23, fresh out of community college, and had just landed her first real job as an assistant at a law firm. She wore an oversized gray coat that had seen better days and carried a fake leather bag with the strap barely holding together. Her face was soft and gentle, though her eyes looked tired, like someone who had learned too early that the world could be unkind. She boarded the bus like she did every morning. Quiet, unnoticed, and hoping to make it through without trouble. But today was different. One of the boys in the back, maybe 21, baseball cap on backwards, feet on the seat in front of him, whispered something to his friend and snorted. Then louder this time, he said, "Yo, nice scarf. Trying to hide something under there?" His friend laughed, nudging another. "Bet she's one of those, what do they call them? Hijab girl bosses?" Alina stiffened. She could feel their eyes on her. She did her best to ignore them. But the boy leaned forward, his voice slicing through the quiet hum of the bus. "Hey, don't you people ride camels or something?" he sneered. "You lost or what?" The bus didn't stop. The driver didn't say anything. No one did. Not the businessman beside her. Not the woman with her Starbucks and earbuds. Not the elderly man scrolling through his phone. Silence. Indifference. Her hands trembled as she clutched her bag tighter. Her heart raced. She'd dealt with microaggressions before, offhand comments, side glances, the occasional muttered insult. But this felt louder. Meaner. More dangerous. Then, a voice from the front spoke. "Miss, would you like to come sit here?" It wasn't loud, but it was firm. Clear. Safe. Everyone turned. He was sitting near the front of the bus, a man in his mid-30s with kind, worn eyes, a short beard, and a sleepy little girl curled up against his shoulder. His name was Matthew Green, though Alina wouldn't know that for another hour. His daughter, Lily, was barely 5, with tiny sneakers and a purple stuffed rabbit in her lap. He patted the empty seat beside him. "There's plenty of room." Alina hesitated for a moment, unsure. The boys in the back chuckled again. "Yeah, run to daddy." But she stood. Quietly. And walked the length of the bus to sit beside the man. "Thank you," she whispered, tears stinging the corners of her eyes. He smiled gently. "You're not alone." The ride continued in silence after that. The boys snickered a few more times, but their voices were weaker now, like they'd lost their audience. Alina sat upright, trying to keep her composure. But inside, something was cracking, years of swallowing her pain, years of pretending it didn't matter, all unraveling. Matthew adjusted Lily's head gently. "I'm sorry that happened," he said. She nodded, unable to speak. "My daughter," he continued, "she's starting kindergarten next year. I worry about the world she's growing up in. I try to show her what kindness looks like, so she'll recognize it when she sees it." Alina looked at him then, truly looked. There was something raw and real in his face, someone who had known hardship, too. She felt a connection. Not romantic. Not dramatic. Just deeply human. "You're a good father," she said quietly. He smiled, eyes tired. "I try." They talked for a few minutes. About work, about Lily's obsession with dinosaurs, about how Alina's mother used to braid her hair before she passed away. It was the first time in weeks that Alina felt seen. Like she wasn't just surviving. Like she mattered. When the bus reached her stop, she stood up. "Thank you again," she said. Matthew nodded. "Take care of yourself, Alina." She paused. "How did you know my name?" He smiled. "It's on your work badge." She laughed for the first time that day. Weeks passed. Alina started taking a different bus, one that took longer but felt safer. Still, she often thought about that day. About the man who made space when no one else did. About how one small act of kindness had changed the shape of her week, maybe even her view of the world. One Friday afternoon, she was walking past a local playground when she saw a familiar face sitting on a bench, watching a little girl in a yellow jacket chase bubbles. "Matthew?" He turned, surprised. "Alina?" They caught up. He was between jobs, doing freelance carpentry and raising Lily full-time. His wife had passed away 3 years ago from cancer. He didn't complain. Just said, "We're figuring it out." She offered to buy them ice cream. He accepted. They sat on the bench together, watching Lily laugh, and for the first time, it didn't feel like two strangers from a city that had forgotten its soul. It felt like the start of something quietly good. Months later, Alina helped Matthew build a website for his carpentry work. It started getting local traction. Orders came in from cafes and homes looking for custom tables and shelves. She used her firm's legal resources to help him register the business properly. In return, he helped her fix a broken door and taught her how to use a power drill. They never became lovers. This wasn't that kind of story. But they became something just as rare, chosen family. Lily started calling her Auntie Lena. One evening, Alina sat across from Matthew on the porch of his tiny house just outside the city. They were drinking tea. The sky was a deep, honeyed orange. Lily was asleep inside. "You know," Alina said softly, "that day on the bus, you didn't just give me a seat. You gave me a little of my faith back." Matthew looked down, humble as ever. "You reminded me why I teach my daughter to speak up." There was a pause. "You think things get better?" she asked. He looked at her, then up at the sky. "They do," he said. "When people show up. Even in small ways. Especially in small ways." A year later, Alina started a community group called Not Alone. It was a support space for women dealing with harassment, trauma, and isolation. She held meetings every Saturday at the local library, and slowly, more people began to show up. Victims became volunteers. Stories were shared. Healing began. She invited Matthew as a guest speaker once. He spoke softly, simply. "I didn't do anything heroic," he said. "I just made room." But in the audience, dozens of women cried. Because they knew what it felt like when no one did. Kindness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a seat offered on a crowded bus. A hand extended when others turn away. A quiet voice saying, "You're not alone." And from that moment, between a harassed woman and a weary father, something stronger than hate was built, connection. Because in a world that too often forgets how to care, compassion is rebellion. And every small act matters. Alina never forgot that day. She wore it in her smile. In her work. In the way she showed up for others. And so did Lily, who grew up knowing, when you see someone hurting, don't look away. Make space. Speak up. Offer a seat. Because sometimes, a seat is more than just a place to rest. It's the beginning of hope.